The air was thick with smoke and the acrid stench of burning metal. The distant echoes of artillery fire reverberated through the crumbling cityscape, a grim reminder that the war was far from over. Amid the chaos, a lone soldier moved with purpose, his combat boots crunching over shattered glass and debris. His name was Corporal Elias Varn, and he was a long way from home. Elias adjusted the grip on his plasma rifle, his eyes scanning the ruins for any sign of movement. The mission was simple: extract any surviving civilians from the war-torn sector before the enemy closed in. But simple missions had a way of going sideways, and this one was no exception. A faint cry caught his attention. It was soft, almost imperceptible over the din of battle, but it was there, a child's voice. Elias turned sharply, his training kicking in as he followed the sound. He moved cautiously, his rifle at the ready, until he found the source of the cry. A woman stood in the shadow of a collapsed building, her face streaked with dirt and tears. In her arms, she cradled a small child, no more than 5 years old. The boy was unconscious, his breathing shallow. The woman's eyes locked onto Elias, and she stumbled forward, desperation etched into every line of her face. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling. "Save my son. He's all I have left." Elias hesitated. His orders were clear: prioritize the mission. Civilians were secondary. But the woman's plea struck a chord deep within him, a reminder of why he had joined the military in the first place: to protect the innocent. "I'll get you both out of here," he said firmly, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. "But we need to move. Now." The woman nodded, clutching her child tighter as Elias led them through the maze of rubble. The extraction point was 2 clicks away, and every second counted. The enemy was closing in, and the sound of their war machines grew louder with each passing moment. They hadn't gone far when the ground shook violently, throwing them off balance. Elias cursed under his breath as a massive enemy dropship descended from the smoke-filled sky, its engines roaring like a beast from hell. The woman screamed, shielding her child as debris rained down around them. "This way!" Elias shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her into the relative safety of a nearby alley. He peered around the corner, his heart pounding as he assessed the situation. The dropship had deployed a squad of heavily armed soldiers, and they were fanning out, searching for survivors or targets. Elias knew they couldn't outrun them. Not with the child. He glanced at the woman, her face pale with fear, and made a decision. "Stay here," he ordered, handing her a small sidearm. "If anything happens to me, keep moving east. The extraction point is that way." Before she could protest, Elias stepped out into the open, his rifle raised. He fired a burst of plasma rounds at the enemy soldiers, drawing their attention. Shouts filled the air as they returned fire, their energy bolts sizzling past him. Elias ducked behind a crumbling wall, his mind racing. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but he had one advantage. He was fighting for something greater than himself. The firefight was intense, each second stretching into an eternity. Elias moved with precision, picking off enemy soldiers one by one. But he was only human, and his luck couldn't last forever. A searing pain shot through his side as an energy bolt grazed him, and he stumbled, gritting his teeth against the agony. He glanced back at the alley, where the woman and her child were still hidden. He couldn't let them down. Not now. Summoning every ounce of strength, Elias pushed himself to his feet and charged forward, his rifle blazing. The enemy didn't expect such a reckless assault. They faltered, giving Elias the opening he needed. He took them down with ruthless efficiency, his movements fueled by sheer determination. When the last soldier fell, Elias collapsed to his knees, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Elias!" The woman's voice broke through the haze of pain. She ran to his side, her eyes wide with concern. "You're hurt." "I'll live," he muttered, forcing himself to stand. "We need to keep moving." The woman hesitated, then nodded. Together they pressed on, the child still cradled in her arms. The extraction point was within sight when the ground shook again, this time with even greater force. Elias turned, his blood running cold as a massive enemy walker emerged from the smoke, its cannons trained on them. "Run!" Elias shouted, shoving the woman toward the extraction point. He raised his rifle, firing at the walker in a futile attempt to slow it down. The machine's armor was too thick, and it advanced relentlessly, its cannons charging with a menacing hum. The woman reached the extraction point, where a dropship waited, its engines roaring. She turned back, her eyes filled with tears. "Elias! Come on!" But Elias didn't move. He stood his ground, his rifle aimed at the walker. He knew he couldn't stop it, but he could buy them time. "Go!" he yelled, his voice raw with emotion. "Save your son." The woman hesitated for a moment, then climbed aboard the dropship, clutching her child tightly. As the ship lifted off, Elias felt a strange sense of peace. He had done his duty. He had saved them. The walker's cannons fired, and the world exploded in a blinding flash of light. The dropship soared into the sky, leaving the burning city behind. The woman held her son close, tears streaming down her face. She would never forget the soldier who had given his life for them. Back on the ground amidst the ruins, a single dog tag lay in the ashes. It bore the name of Corporal Elias Varn, a hero who had refused to leave anyone behind.